For example, ako I'm just being honest. I've seen a lot of Pikiti guys. I've seen a lot of Kiro guys. I've seen a lot of ano ba yung mga artist groups? I have very limited knowledge of the artists like Lightning and
Mm.
Doce Pares. And more or less the moves are the same. It's just that I see a lot of moves that I've seen during probably 1999 that they're still using now that I truly believe will not work in an actual fight.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 15 of Pinoy Martial Arts Mastermind. Today, as usual, we have Professor Franco Rolyoda of BJJ, DefTac BJJ Philippines, and tama ba yun? BJJ.
Jiu-jitsu and MMA.
There you go, yeah. And then we have Dr. Sixto Carlos of Carlos Hermanos Fight Club, Libre Fighting Philippines, and Urban Combatives Study Group Philippines. And myself, Dax Cordero, the matinee idol of this group. And today we are going to again tackle another controversial topic. Well, at least we think that it's controversial. Tradition versus evolution in martial arts. So it's kind of an all-encompassing subject, but let's see how it goes. So
where to begin?
Okay.
Can I start? Okay.
Yes,
First of all,
ahead,
we have to define what is tradition.
Yes.
Traditional.
Yes.
And what is what's the other term? Evolutionary. What was the term?
Evolution. Tradition versus evolution.
Okay. So, do we have a definition for that?
Not yet, but feel free. Ako, the way I understand it is, martial arts is, as we know, is deeply rooted in tradition, and this means like we cherish. I think it's because of our reverence to our masters. Like we try to keep the martial arts as pure as possible, and what happens is the techniques get passed down from generation to generation. And then there is always that resistance to change. Now that it's good because you keep the purity of the art, but then there is also that side that people are saying that it becomes obsolete. Like some people say the techniques that worked hundreds of years ago are no longer relevant in this day and age. So anyway, Sixto, what can you say about that?
The thing about tradition, kasi, in a way before, kasi we didn't have the equipment that we have now, the safety equipment. We didn't have videos, or even during the 70s, 80s, 90s, our videos were quite expensive. So I think before it was a necessity, so you can maintain the purity of the art. The purity meaning what the master, what the founder thought worked during his time. It's to, kung sagapa sa in corporate term, yung mga ano yan quality control of their martial art. Okay, for their time. That's one thing. Kasi maybe from the way a master punched before when he was fighting, or the way he punched or kicked or elbowed, that was what worked. That was what worked before, and the way he trained. So he wanted to, people studying the system wanted to maintain that, so they can assure their students can fight well. Franco?
Okay. Before I begin my spiel, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in and watching and listening. Apparently, Doc and the other Doc, marami palang nakikinig sa atin. We have an audience. People are actually listening to the stuff that we're talking about. They are discussing. They're actually discussing.
We make sense.
Yun, okay? So, yun lang. I want to get it out there, okay? So, for everyone who watched and listened, thank you so much. Don't worry, we will never change. We will never change. For those who would like to reach out and prove their points, okay, and have a discussion about any of the topics, there's a comment section below. Type your insights, type your inputs. Dax will answer. Okay,
I will
he's
answer
our
as best I can.
okay.
As best I can.
Dax
So
always
so
answers.
so
But
pe-
but
people actually like our
Yes.
semi-intellectual discussions. Okay. Oh, okay,
but
that's a
but
good
but
thing. That's
but
that's a
please
Okay.
good thing.
try to keep, you can disagree with us, you can argue with us, but try to keep it respectful, no? Even with people,
Mm,
other people commenting. And
mm.
because you pointed that out, Franco, that there are some people who are actually listening to us. I've suddenly become shy because before I thought we were just talking to space.
Yeah, we just wanted an outlet for our brain
I thought we
farts,
were
but
just talking to each
apparently,
other. Yes.
apparently people
So
were like listening to our conversation, so it's not a bad thing. Okay, so now,
okay,
so going back to this, because this
tradition, yeah.
touches a lot of facets, not just in traditional martial arts, but to modern martial arts students. For me, the way I understand martial arts with how I trained through the years, especially from the beginning up to this point, traditional martial arts laid down the foundation for the evolution of current martial arts. I really believe, I totally agree with Doc Sixto kanina na they were trying to figure things out. Our ancestors, the people who went before us, they were trying to lay down the foundation for what should be an evolution of what they started. That's just how I see it. Like there's nothing wrong with practicing traditional movements. It gives you that sentimental feeling, that emotional connection to the martial arts that you're training. However, I am a strong proponent that uh, any combat system, any martial arts principle should evolve. It should adhere to the times or adapt to the times because people change, people adapt. Not just minsan nga mas nauunang nag-adapt yung mga bad guys kaysa sa good guys eh. So you have to be prepared for that. And at the same time, the level of knowledge that people acquire is a lot faster now. So
Mm.
if we stick to traditional movements because we want it to be pure, then I really believe that it's a disservice to those who started it. So it's good that we practice the basics, the fundamentals. Okay, we are building a solid foundation. Now, let it be a journey. Martial arts is supposed to be a journey. So let it be a journey. Ako personally, I have a problem with purists. I have a problem with purists for the simple reason that some of the techniques that were used in the 80s and the 90s do not apply now
Mm.
because people got better. People got better. We should be finding ways to to make things better. We should
No,
find ways to improve.
yeah, because I remember there was a time, again, no names I won't mention, like in
Hmm.
BJJ, even in BJJ, okay?
Yes, yes, that
Okay,
is true.
we asked this champion before, so what's your comment? Oh, I don't believe in lifting weights or doing that anymore. My
Hmm.
my BJJ is enough to defeat
Yes.
anyone. So in a way, that's kind of keeping tradition also.
No, Franco, you pointed out this very interesting thing when you said that bad guys evolve ahead of the good guys,
Hmm.
and
That's true. Ako, I believe that
I
talaga.
Look at
I
Franco, he's a bad
yes,
guy.
he's so
And
evolved.
he
You,
looks the
you
part.
wouldn't
He looks
believe
the
it.
part.
No, but it's true
Lagi ako
because
profile eh. Oh.
yeah, because in the views of the purist martial artist,
Hmm.
um, it's if you go beyond what is being taught, or if you go against it, then that's a fault
Hmm. Hmm.
on your part. So the people, I guess, who do this are deemed as undisciplined,
Hmm.
or like you said,
Heretics.
yes,
Heretics.
yes.
Hmm.
So because it goes beyond what is deemed as honorable, and but the thing is, it's not, to me, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because as you say, it's a fighting, we are in the fighting arts, the fighting sports, no? So if you don't evolve and you stick to what is obsolete, then you might get into trouble, because it might not apply with people now, because people know better now. I mean, I'm sure after hundreds, thousands of years, people are, if you do the same thing over and over again, then people are gonna get onto you, and they know how to counter you and whatnot. But of course there are virtues, and there are pluses with traditionalists, and also what do you call them, evolutionists.
Oh, totoo yun. Totoo yun. And then, what do you call this? I think this is for Doc Sixto, because he's trained in several combat systems and trained a lot of combat system coaches. Or I'm not really familiar with the proper term for it, but Doc, through the years that you're training with other people, and then you're now training like a new batch of students, could it be attributed, like the whole debate about tradition and evolution, could it be attributed to the fact that people just got really used to doing certain techniques? They don't want to explore other possibilities. Parang they don't what do you call this? Kasi ako, for example, when I teach MMA fighters, I want to correct bad habits, but they always say they've been doing this for the longest time, and they're very parang ano sila, they're non-receptive to adjustments or changes. I mean, do you guys in the combative system training or coaching people, do you get that? Kasi pwedeng it could probably contribute as to why evolution or changes are not really accepted.
Kasi for example, like the time when I was handling the Ilord MMA team, si Kaloy, right? Whatever you do to try to teach him proper grappling, proper submission, he just wouldn't do it because of years and years of boxing and winning by punching, by outlasting. He just couldn't get it. Teach him a proper kimura, proper armbar. He would just power through. I don't know, maybe it's because body mechanics, what he learned earlier, and his body just refuses to learn it. So
I think this is particularly true in Filipino martial arts, because we have groups who are very, very loyal to the
parochial. So it's a religion for them.
Yes, no, up to a certain, they would go as far as actually try to mimic what how the master would dress, and out of respect,
Yeah, even the belt bag.
And that's exactly my follow-up question. Because if it's not the curriculum or the promise of improving the system, then it's probably the romanticized connection to the masters. Diba? So yeah, so pasok yung sagot ni Dax.
I find this, it's I find it's also beautiful. There's beauty in it, because it's born out of the respect of the work of that particular master. But this is where I think a line should be drawn, because there's a martial art and there's also a practical side. You have to remember that when we do martial arts, it's not an art really. Like it is, because it's beautiful, and then it instills discipline and honor and whatnot. But on the flip side of it, there's an ugly side of martial arts. It's fighting, it's war. And if you try to emulate your master and do things honorably, this is what I was trying to point out when I mentioned what you said about the bad guys, no? Because if you go out of that bubble,
the bubble,
yes.
Yeah.
If you step out of that, then you're a rebel. Then you are you're not living by the rules. But sometimes you have to do that. So it's you're not necessarily a bad guy, but you're just being practical.
Okay.
Divide.
Okay, there's this jiu-jitsu professor who will forever remain unnamed. He stands in a certain way. Okay, he stands in a certain way, and his hands, when he holds something, he holds things in a certain way, and it's funny. I see a lot of his students, they copy the way he stands, and they copy the way he holds his phone. glasses, etc. But the thing is, what they don't know is because he's already injured. He already has
Ah.
injuries. He has a back injury. His hand is already injured. And the same thing, I've seen that in FMA. A lot of Americans copy this grandmaster.
Mm-hmm.
He has a certain stance and he bends his. He has this pelvic tilt. It goes forward, okay? But you have to realize, you can tell that the grandmaster already has an injury.
Mm.
He has a lower back injury and people are copying that. So,
So
I,
ano to?
again,
Failure
again,
of disclosure?
no, actually, it's more of that's
Mm.
one, and context. Well, why do they do it that way? For example, we had a discussion with Marco,
Mm-hmm.
our friend from Croatia.
Yeah.
We were discussing about axes and machetes. How come here it's more common to use machetes or swords, and in their place it's more of axes or tomahawks? It's
Mm-hmm.
because of the kind of wood that they chop.
Mm.
They chop here. We have a lot of vines, bamboo,
Much thinner.
much thinner. So it's easier to use a machete. In
Mm-hmm.
their place, when they have hardwood, bigger oak wood, diba? So
Mm. Much
thicker,
bigger, much thicker. Okay.
harder, and machete just wouldn't work on that. So again, you have to study the context of the art there. Why was it done that way?
The topic again, going back to the topic of FMA or Filipino martial arts. A lot of the movements were because of what as you mentioned, Sixto, that what was available before. Like if you go to knife martial arts or knife Filipino knife martial arts, no,
Mm.
it was specialized for long knives,
Longer.
no?
Mm.
Mm.
Which was what
Ganda.
very common.
Oh,
Yes.
Yep.
Punta Idaga. This is a knife in FMA.
Yeah.
This
So
is
Mm.
so
the.
so it
It's not a short knife. So techniques
yeah
for that would be
would be different. Like
different.
Yep.
because before it was common for people to carry knives because we're an agricultural country.
And it's
Uh,
accepted. It's
it was
accepted. Even
accepted.
if you go
So
to the
Mm.
province, if it's still quite common, you
so it's
see
yeah, people carrying out machetes,
machetes,
carrying
bolos.
around bolos and long knives, and it was very practical before because these were tools that were readily available.
Mm.
Now,
Yes.
sometimes of course, some might argue, but these techniques may not be applicable anymore to the more common knives that we have. No, in fact, this was pointed out by the founder of Libre Fighting, si Scott Babb. In one of our podcasts, he said, he mentioned this, that before in traditional Filipino martial arts, we practice with long knives, and long knives, who can you won't be able to carry around a long
Yeah.
knife as long as Sixto's forearm in the city, so it's
It's
just
not
not
legal, yeah.
practical. It's not legal. It's not practical. So this is an example of the evolution. Not to say that there's no use. I'm like, if you are able to get a long knife, then at least you know how to use
Yeah.
it. But it's no longer inclusive. That's the thing. No, Franco.
Pero what is the percentage of uh how do I put this? Sige, I'm gonna rephrase it. Like, how effective are traditional moves in modern times? Yeah, but I think that's the reason why this debate has been going on for so long. I mean,
Ako,
how effective are the traditional, kasi
yeah,
ako, for example, in striking, probably a small percentage, because there have been evolutions as to the proper ways of doing a punch or a kick based on human biomechanics in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu really encourages evolution and finding out more ways to do things more efficiently. But when it comes to, like, for example, me, and as much as stick fighting and weapons training is concerned, I just remain to the basics, the fundamentals. But whenever I see like a proper way of doing certain things in terms of doing it, being more biomechanically efficient, I know that I can apply that to the limited training that I had.
ako,
Diba? So,
I have
yun
a,
yun.
I've kind of an answer to that. Yung
Mm,
evolution, no? Because so far I've been siding towards evolution, but
mm,
there is also an example of To answer your question, wherein do traditional moves or traditional techniques, do they still work?
Still apply.
Do they apply today? A perfect example to answer that would be if you look in the UFC, where everybody's doing MMA, everybody strikes like a boxer, everybody kicks like a Muay Thai. You look at people like Lyoto Machida. You look like people like Wonderboy Thompson. They do traditional karate.
Yeah.
And when they do it, people are surprised. Like, when Machida first came out, he was so traditional. He was so pure karate. Of course, he was jiu-jitsu also, but then the way he would stand,
the
with the
stance,
hands low and then wide stance. They see, Joe Rogan would call him like a superhero because it looked so or an anime character because it was so out of place, and yet he was knocking people left and right. So and the same thing with Wonderboy Thompson. He has this wide karate stance, and he would use that side kick, and so it still has its place. But again, it's.
Pero sa FMA, for FMA naman, what is the predicament of that statement when applied to FMA or combat systems?
Okay, kasi ako I have this theory which a lot of FM guys will hate me for telling you. Because a lot of
lang yan, Doc. Di naman nila tayo lalabanan ng suntukan.
Wala naman nakikinig.
Okay.
Wala nga pala nakikinig.
Okay. Because a lot of techniques, no? A lot of techniques with a knife, counters, etc. Actually, you can find the techniques in Rex Applegate's book. Are you familiar with Rex Applegate? He was one of the father of combatives.
I've heard of him. I haven't read the book.
He was the author of Kill or Be Killed. It's a very good book. It's about fighting, guns, crowd control, etc. And I was discussing this with Arvin Sasa, and I saw a lot of techniques. It's all there. So again, this goes to I'd like to say, because a lot of traditions are they're made up, they're bullshit. For example, I'll say something in Wing Chun. Was it really founded by a nun?
No. Ako, nakikita ko yung moves the way I've seen Wing Chun move so many times. I know it
was designed by a woman, so maybe not, but again, I'm really skeptic. For example, there's this other martial art where the founder created it after dreaming of angels fighting, and he just copied the move. So some of the traditions are
folklore,
like one of Scott Babb's original martial arts. If you read his book, originally he thought it was a long line of masters, blah blah blah. Then later he found out that his specific martial art, it's quite popular. It's a very popular martial art in the States, and they have some here in the Philippines also. He found out that the martial art was actually somebody just read a karate book and copied it. That's it. Like, for example, like they mentioned, combat judo, which is, I'm not sure if that's an international term. You'd be surprised. Actually, a lot of combat judo guys just read karate books and judo books and just copied it.
Yep.
And they just
brought it together.
Judo.
Combat judo.
Anyway, the thing about tradition again is, was it really necessary, or was it just BS? For example, like getting chicken blood poured over you, they spray with it. So what's with that? So
significance nun, di ba?
Again, in context, some traditions are good. Like, again, you do thousands of repetitions for a certain technique, which is something you follow in boxing, in the more modern martial arts, boxing, Muay Thai, BJJ. But again, other things, you just do it out of tradition. I don't know. It's BS.
Me, I think that although I tend to side towards evolution, I still think that they can go hand in hand. Because the problem
Of course.
with being, too dynamic, or leaning always towards evolution is sometimes you tend to lose your center. Sometimes, you go astray.
And everybody becomes an expert.
Everybody, yes, exactly. Because it keeps on changing. But then if traditional martial arts, if you have a very strong base, in any particular martial art, it gives you a center. There's always a guiding, guiding light, if you may. Like, you always tend to gravitate towards that, and you don't go, you don't stray too much, and it gives you discipline. It instills these virtues. No, so it's still. I actually watched this video of this guy. He's an Aikido guy. I think he's an American, and he posts a lot of Aikido stuff, but he's very traditional. And he was actually ballsy enough to put it to the test. He asked an MMA guy to spar with him.
Oh yeah, I know that video.
Yeah, because he wanted to. And it's actually very interesting. And the thing is, okay, well, to cut a long story short, he got beaten up really badly by the MMA guy. But what he said was, okay, so it's not, apparently it doesn't work as effectively as I thought, but I will still continue to practice it. I know that it might not be as effective as probably MMA against MMA or whatever, but I still want to practice it because it's because of what it does for me. So it's not necessarily a form of fighting for him, but it's something that is very personal, and I appreciate that. So and I guess the traditional part is where it bears heavily on this kind of
I agree. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Again, it's up to you what you want to. But the thing is, you just have to say what is it for. One of the problems is a lot of the techniques they kept a secret. So, but this is also found in other systems. Like there are also some Chinese systems which they say, oh, this system is traditionally taught to the personal bodyguards of the emperor, and it's not shown to anybody else. So again, but I ask somebody, okay, you know what? I would trust what the guy does or what the foot soldier does who fights every day compared to the bodyguard who fights how often? Once in his lifetime?
Yes.
It's so those are questions. You have to put things in context. I remember Lee Morrison. We were discussing about traditional martial arts of karate, and he was telling me a lot of those are actually effective. And what they were doing before, those were the combatives of the yesteryears. And that was the way that people can train. But now we have more equipment. So we can now change or modify the training to make it, again, more efficient. He didn't say it's not effective, but again, there are ways of training it more efficiently.
Feeling ko yun nga. Kasi there's just so many things that come into play, and people are debating about. Most of the debates that I encounter are just people will always go the limitation, and then it will always be countered by conceptual practice.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the verbal sparring of your master versus my master.
My master is better than your master.
Blah,
blah, blah, blah. Dati ngayon, ako, subukan na lang natin. Again, okay, so we've discussed traditional, but one good thing about evolution, okay? Because have you seen Muay Thai videos, old Muay Thai videos, 1940s, 1930s? Have you seen the way they punch?
Yeah. Pag ganun.
Diba? Rabbit punch.
Rabbit punching.
Bara-bara. So, again, you will notice that there was a change. It was modified. Maybe they learned boxing and they improved the punching aspect of their art. Again, with jiu-jitsu, if you look at the old videos of jiu-jitsu, di ba? Lahat bottom game.
Yep.
Diba? That's a bottom game. You just wait for a mistake, then counter.
Yep. And then when it comes to the evolution of jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu
There's a lot, di ba?
of the 80s and the 90s are totally different from how they do it now. Like now you have so many options. You could either initiate the attack or like what uh Doc Sixto said, you can be reactive. Before the immediate response was to pull guard, like put everyone into close guard. Now with the influence of
It's more aggressive, yeah.
yeah, it's more aggressive. You can actually take the guy down. The option now is to pacify and then neutralize. So it simply means when you say those things, it's not about putting them in guard anymore. It's actually taking them out of their center of gravity and pinning them down on the floor. So I mean, it took like more than 10 years for the shift to happen, but it also showed jiu-jitsu practitioners and coaches that there's still room to evolve. There's always room for improvement, and more practitioners means more people with different emphasis on the expression of the technique. So I really think that that's why I was very curious as to how that concept applies to FMA and to
So
other FMA groups that practice certain things. Because, for example, ako I'm just being honest. I've seen a lot of Pikiti guys. I've seen a lot of Kiro guys. I've seen a lot of ano pa ba yung mga arnis groups? I have very limited knowledge of the arnis like Lightning and Doce Pares. And more or less the moves are the same. It's just that I see a lot of moves that I've seen during probably 1999 that they're still using now that I truly believe will not work in an actual fight. Yun lang yun. And I don't understand why they still preach that it's the truth or it's still it's fact.
kasi
Diba?
the thing about me, no, what I did was I specifically tried to study other systems which were weapon systems which were non
Mm.
FMA. I tried to look for systems that were built down up,
Mm.
modified. Because for example, one common technique is they call it defanging the snake. So they slash your
Mm.
hand. They think, kasi marami in a lot of knife spars, oh, I slash your hand, so that stops the fight. But the
Mm.
thing is, now with CCTVs, we realize that it doesn't stop your opponent. And even
Yes.
if you stab your opponent several times, it doesn't stop them. So
Mm.
with technology now, I guess we have to adjust it. Before we just say, okay, one stab, oh, the fight's over, blah,
Mm.
blah, blah, blah. Actually, and now we see evidence, we have video evidence that it's not enough.
Mm. So, for example, for me in jiu-jitsu and other like grappling systems that I know of, there's a curriculum and there's progression. So in FMA, who controls the curriculum ba? Who is in charge of the curriculum or who is capable of making changes in the curriculum or in the lesson proper so that now there's an evolution of information
Oh, in
that can be
FMA?
passed. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Basically, everybody's a master.
Everyone's a master. And more
Everybody's a
masters
master.
than students, actually. So anyone can
So
change.
so
Anyone
so
can
who
make
listens?
change.
So who is the authority now? Like for
Oh my
example,
God.
we were this is just me. So someone stabs you with a knife this way. Nobody stab. I rarely see people stab this way, but
Mm,
it's in most of the Arnis videos that I've watched on YouTube.
mm.
A lot of them do it this way. Now, is there somebody like any particular head in any of the groups that could say, guys, this is something that was part before. We can train it if you want to learn it. Diba? We're not totally discarding it, but let's just point it out na this is not the super deadly dagger fist whatever
Mm.
technique that will end your opponent's life, because in reality, as Doc Sixto said, with the information available and with CCTVs, this is rarely used.
Yeah.
Then, seryoso, the one thing that I learned from learning FMA and from learning from you guys, and yan, Alfred, who can't be here right now, is that uh, you have, for you to know which techniques are effective, you have to watch people who have done it before.
Mm.
Okay,
And with this one, so
I
yun,
have to say,
that's what I'm very curious
I have to
now.
say,
Yeah,
Franco,
kasi you're more good.
that the CCTV thing and witnessing somebody do it, you know,
Mm,
it I have to say this, I'm sure again I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but the FMA scene is a freaking mess. It's a
Yeah.
mess, and everyone's a master. Everyone has something to say. You post a video of you actually doing a technique on somebody, you will hear so many criticisms. Oh, you're stepping on the wrong foot. Oh, you're holding your. Oh, you should have done this
The
technique.
grip is wrong.
Yes,
Yeah, the grip was wrong.
and I have to say, so this is actually posting a video of yourself actually fighting. So you and your partner fighting, you're giving it your all, and you're showing all these techniques, and you have all these people who are arguing, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work in real life because you're smart or whatever, blah 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 blah. 99.98% of those people do not fight. They don't.
We're not
just
even trained
talk.
regularly.
They talk. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Okay,
No
I have a
master,
story.
nothing.
There's this master now that teaches all over the world. Way back in the 90s, he was showing me some traditional shit. He said to attack me. I was already doing jiu-jitsu back then. So, a single leg takedown, slam on the ground, side mount, full mount armbar. I have that picture. And if that master ever badmouths me, I have that picture. I have not released it publicly. And
so it happened. So you have photos, so it happened.
But the thing is, because some masters I've seen, they would say, the work on, will this work? Will that work? Blah 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 work. I don't know, but we study it. What for? And I actually, then they would say, but the moves are hidden. Well, why hide it in the first place?
Right.
Well, it's to keep the people who the spies, blah blah. Then just don't teach them. I don't know, especially now. Personally, I don't believe in hidden moves. Personally, my belief is just teach it directly. If you don't like the student, just don't teach him. Period.
The really,
it's that easy.
Personally, the really masters for me are the people who are not afraid to learn new things, that are they're not close to, and again, Sixto is a prime example. You have Lee Morrison, who's a prime example. Even Scott Babb, who has his own knife system, when he teaches it, the way he teaches is he emphasizes that what I teach is not dogma. It's a guide. Usually there's always a disclaimer. It's a guide. Now the problem with this sometimes is it's too vague. Now you have different chapters. They say he always says, I'm teaching you Libre, but because he does Libre fighting. That's his system. No? When he says, okay, I'll teach you Libre, but then you can make it your own. The problem with that is Libre in itself is an excellent system, and then he teaches one chapter head, and this chapter head adds silat or whatever to his, and then whatever system he has, FMA, and then he teaches a totally different thing, which is his interpretation. He teaches it to the students. But the problem with that is it's no longer Libre. It's your interpretation of Libre. So I think the traditional part of it, it's your responsibility, if you are an instructor of a system, to actually leave it to your students to do their own interpretation. If you have your own interpretation, you can share it, but you don't teach it as dogma. So
okay.
I like that. Don't teach it as dogma.
Okay, because one problem of innovation is, this is the evil side of innovation. Is it necessary? So you modified it.
Good point.
For example, like in Wing Chun. In Wing Chun, most of the attacks are linear. Okay, the kicks are linear. Front, side, stomp. Okay, I used to do Wing Chun before. So when you add a round kick, is it still Wing Chun, or is it a different art altogether?
Yeah, traditionalists will say it's not Wing Chun anymore.
But actually it's still Wing Chun with a round kick. Okay, let's say Jiu-Jitsu. You're doing Jiu-Jitsu, but you add biting, you add eye gouges. Is that a different art already, or is it just Jiu-Jitsu?
Jiu-Jitsu pa rin. It's still Jiu-Jitsu with the add-on.
So that's my thing. A lot of guys, they just modify one small thing. Like there's this group, they just added some Lacan techniques from stick, is it French stick fighting or Italian? It's European, European stick fighting. They added to this, and it's an entirely new thing. So, so again, first is, was the innovation necessary? Was it necessary? Two, you added that modification. Does it make it new? So those are questions.
So parang ano siya, to the side of the traditionalist, it's like, why are you fixing something that's not broken?
That's not broken.
And again, is your innovation good?
Is the innovation?
Is it actually bad? Is it, because a lot of times, a lot of innovations are actually just theoretical. That's one problem I see with a lot of guys.
Pero do you guys agree that evolution comes from those that cross-trained with other martial arts, or most of the innovations happened because people didn't just train in that particular martial art? Parang they never stuck themselves inside that system bubble, that they were influenced by other martial arts, hence the innovation.
Okay, the thing is, cross training. Okay, it's not necessary that you cross train to get better, because I see a lot of full contact guys. They study FMA. Then it makes me think, why move that way? Why suddenly you believe in wrist locks in a fight? So it's not only cross train; it's testing that technique. So again, you're an MMA guy, then you learn this. Suddenly, you learn pressure point fighting from a traditional martial art. Suddenly, you add it to your system. Does it work? That's my question. If you test it, it works. Good, but just adding it because you learned something else, I don't agree with that.
I just don't. Because now, with all of these points in discussion, now it's getting a little bit clearer, at least for me, na the tradition and evolution could go hand in hand depending on who is studying it now or who is putting it into practice.
And context.
And context
is very important. Ako personally, I was studying karate before when I was in high school. And one of my frustrations is, for some reason, I never got to the pinnacle of it. Like, I only got to, I think I was only a blue belt. I think I was blue belt for 3 years. And but for some reason now, that with all that I've learned, and particularly with the with the importance of evolution, I actually want to go back and study it again, the way it was taught before. I used to do Shotokan karate, and I actually want to learn it. I'm actually looking at videos now to learn the different katas, to learn the different basic defenses. Not because I think that these things, that there's a revival or whatever, but there are still virtues in learning the traditional martial arts. You learn concentration, you become more flexible. As long as Sixto pointed out, as long as there's context, as long as you don't take things literally. So, yeah.
Again, regarding Shotokan, they have evolved. If you see the modern Shotokan guys, they fight well and they knock out people now. So they have evolved. So again, there's something to learn. Yeah, you can learn a lot from them. Yeah.
Oh, the funny thing about traditional and evolution is sometimes people get caught up in the evolution because people evolve, and all of a sudden there's this guy, an old school guy, who comes up and beats everybody up because he's doing the forgotten techniques. People don't. What is he doing? I'm like going back to the example of Lyoto Machida. In the beginning he was knocking people out, and he was I was undefeated until people caught up with what he was doing.
Yeah.
That's karate. So now they start studying karate.
Mm.
And then, okay, so now, no, we're on to this guy. So it goes back to evolution again. Again, the guy, he failed to evolve, in my opinion. And then, he himself got knocked out several times after that. So there's I guess it's really familiarity also. If it's traditional and then you evolve because everybody's doing the same thing, eventually, what you evolve to is also, it becomes the tradition. Like when see Hoist Gracie started steamrolling over everyone because nobody
Yeah.
knew jiu-jitsu. But then when people started,
Learning
learning
jiu-jitsu.
jiu-jitsu, then he couldn't win anymore. So
Yeah.
Familiarity. Yeah.
familiarity, yeah.
Ako, Doc, when jumping off Dax's earlier point, what do you think should be a good point in a student's martial arts journey or studying? Like, for example, a student is like, yeah, he's studying a traditional martial arts. At what skill level are we gonna encourage, like for us coaches, at what point in their training can we encourage them to look at, not even not even practice like tell them the other possibilities, the other innovations that are present? Kasi meaning ko, I really think now na a lot of the things, or a lot of the verbal sparring and throwing out of ideas and the debates are coming from people who trained half-assed, and then since they think na they're not really skilled at this, so let me try another one, and then you start comparing martial arts, and then you start, di ba, yun parang doon na nagkakaroon ng debate So for us coaches now, do we fix the fundamentals first, or at the very beginning we tell them, okay, this is how we used to do it, this is how it's supposed to be done, but look at this guy, he's doing it in a different way, so it's the same concept done differently lang.
Again, it's context there. What is it you really want?
Mm.
Do you want to be a competitive guy? Do you just want to learn? For example, good example is jiu-jitsu.
Mm.
What do you want? Do you want to compete? Do you want to become a black belt? Do you want to compete in jiu-jitsu, in sport jiu-jitsu? Do you want to be good in MMA? Iba focus nun, di ba? It doesn't mean you're good in jiu-jitsu. You'll be good in MMA. I've seen fights in
Yes,
UFC
that's
before.
true.
There was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he fought a Filipino. I think he was a purple belt. Although the black belt won in points, he couldn't control the purple belt guy.
Yep.
So again, it's a difference. It's a context. It's the context that you need. For example, self-defense. For example, I want to learn self-defense or self-protection. But the thing is, a lot of self-protection and self-defense is more of awareness.
Yes, that is true.
Again, you have to study that. Well, what do you want? What do you want? So, but I guess with what you were saying, I guess focus a lot on the basics, more movement, more of a lot of generic techniques that you can transfer to other things. For example, like it's generic enough, then you ask your student, what do you want? Or eventually, I want to be a MMA fighter. So you can focus on that. So I guess you need to have a very good foundation on conditioning, movement. I guess that's it.
Me personally, we talk about the context or why you want to learn. For me, in my old age, I've become very practical. To me, less is more. The less techniques you give me, and I will, like what Bruce Lee said, something like, I fear a man who does one kick 1,000 times or something like that than somebody who does 10,000 kicks once. No?
Yeah.
So I am a firm believer of that. But that said, as a teacher, because not everything that you learn is you don't, if you learn a particular system, particularly from a different person, something that you did not create yourself, you always have doubts, and if you don't have doubts, then you're following that person blindly. But it is I personally, I feel that it's my responsibility to pass on everything that was taught to me, even the techniques that I deem as useless or not as effective. I will teach it to my students, and I will leave it to them, to judge. Now, maybe if they stay on, then I will share my judgments. No, but I guess this is what I'm trying to say is this is where the traditional side, for me, comes. Is very important. In as much as we want to evolve, we also want to stick to what we know and what we want to impart to our students. Like for example, see, Sixto is my is my sensei. He's my master. Okay, but I noticed that when he started teaching me before, and this is no offense to you, Sixto. No, in fact, I find this very interesting. The way he taught me before is so much different to how he teaches his students now. Okay, it's different. It's very different, and I find it fascinating because the end result is always the same. He teaches like this drill. The things that he used to make me do before, I don't see it anymore, and it's a totally different drill now. But then if you see these people fight, it everything comes out. So it's I guess it's everything is the same. It's just the methodology that has changed. No.
Okay. Can I tell you a story about how we evolved? Okay. Okay. One of the FMA systems. Okay, we were teaching it with a certain group, but to be frank, we didn't want to teach them everything. So we focus a lot on the basics. We focus a lot on power strikes, footwork, timing, etc. We removed all of the flow drills. You know what happened? They all became good fighters. So later on, we just removed the flow drills.
Okay. They kept doing it over and over again, and then they got
Just the
better.
basics. That's a lot of sparring. I guess it's the same with jiu-jitsu, diba? I think originally the reason jiu-jitsu works is because a lot of
you spar every day.
No, and the deadly techniques were removed.
Yes.
A lot of the deadly techniques were removed, diba? So you became so good in the safe techniques, in the submissions. You remove the bone breaking. You remove the eye gouging. But again, you became so good with that. Unlike other systems, they still focus on that. It's a question mark if it works.
Like boxers, for example, boxers, it's still those 6 to 8 punches. You have the jab, you have the straight, and they just learn all of this. And I guess they're traditional guys, but you pit them. There will always be a formidable opponent against in a striking match with any martial art, I believe. And they haven't really done any. The straight, the cross is still the same. The jab is, of course, you have these nuances. But it's all, there's no special punch. There's no Street Fighter uppercut. No,
there's no secret punch to boxing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so I guess that's an example of tradition not being too far behind from evolved martial artists. No? But anyway, So okay. The thing is, I think this is a very good topic. And I think it might be, we might be doing a disservice to the people out there if we haven't covered it. Because I'm sure a lot of people have questions when they hear this topic. Maybe we didn't cover everything. So before we wrap this up, I just want to encourage you to do this again. So
and we don't mind
we'll just badmouth you off air, but promise to you. But yeah, no, please, it's I think the topic. I'm sure a lot of people have opinions on this. So thoughts, guys. Final thoughts.
Okay, tradition is good, but you just need to learn the context on why they do it that way.
Franco?
Tradition should bridge the gap towards evolution. It should always lead to evolution pala. I'm sorry. So tradition should always lead to evolution. It's people who practiced this before us laid down the foundation. they took it to the level that they want to take it or they could take it. Now it's our responsibility to make it better.
Right.
So that when we pass it on, it's a better version than the previous one. It's like a new car model all the time. It always there has to be improvements. There
Correct.
has to be improvements.
Ako naman, evolution is to me is the willingness to learn other things, but tradition keeps us grounded and not and it prevents us from going too much astray. No. So anyway, with that, thank you everyone for listening again to our. Hopefully, we have more than 23 listeners next time. Maybe 5.
Make sure you subscribe to this channel, and please make sure to like this video. Again, like what my co-host Dax said here, if we missed out on anything, we would love to be corrected. Just put your thoughts and your insights on the comment section below. And for people who are asking me the people or the names that Doc Sixto doesn't want to name, I'm telling you right now, I'm just being honest, I don't know them as well. So they will forever be unnamed in the show.
If you want to know the names,
you want to know them, message Doc
Sixto. Yeah, and also we are also on Spotify now and Anchor, no?
Yep.
We'll post the list below.
Yep.
We'll try to catch up with the episodes. I think right now we've only uploaded maybe 3 or 4 episodes on audio, but we'll try to catch up and we'll put on the link on the comments below.
We're really working hard to make sure that everyone is has the access to the shows because we've been getting a lot of positive feedback. So again, thank you guys. The video format will always be here on YouTube. To add to the Access audio platform distribution, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Radio Public, Castbox. So basically all the major podcasting platforms in audio format. So please listen to us passively while you're driving, you're in the gym, you're washing the dishes, doing the laundry, everyone's at home. So we would love to keep you guys entertained.
Exactly. All right. So thank you. And
stay safe.
Everyone stay safe. See you next time.
Bye-bye.